Hello and thank you for joining me today. This is Taliesin McKnight, and today I'm going to show you how to do Enochian Magick so that you will be able to work with this system of magic yourself. I will also go into a little bit about the precedent, the various older systems of angel magic, and how this is part of a broader tradition of medieval and Renaissance angel magic. And I will also talk briefly about my own personal experience with this system of magic. So Enochian Magick is basically a form of spirit evocation in which you call upon various spirits or angels and you communicate through some type of a scrying device, such as a black mirror or a scrying stone. So basically you call upon the various spirits or angels and then you communicate through a scrying device. This was a system of magic and spirit communication that was revealed in the 16th century to John Dee and Edward Kelley. However, many of these methods of spirit summoning and communication actually go back to the magical practices from the broader Renaissance and also back to the Middle Ages. In fact, some of these methods for summoning spirits and working with them could actually be traced back to the various magical practices around 2,000 years ago, because we see some aspects of this that can be gleaned from the Papyri Graecae Magicae from around the turn of the Common Era. So that many of these techniques of angel summoning and communication are part of a larger and a broader tradition of magical practice. Okay? But basically, Enochian Magick itself was revealed to John Dee and Edward Kelley in the 16th century. So this is a form of magic that is based on that which was revealed to John Dee and Edward Kelley. Now, Enochian Magick is often believed to be very complex, very complicated, hard to work with, and there is really not any very good information found on YouTube. It's very hard to find. But today I'm going to give very simple instructions for how to work with this system so that you can begin working with this system of magic yourself. And like I said, I will also talk about some of my own personal experiences with this form of magic. So, Enochian Magick was revealed to John Dee and Edward Kelley. John Dee was one of the most educated individuals of Elizabethan England. John Dee was an expert in mathematics, geometry, astronomy, astrology, alchemy, navigation, geography, philosophy. He was one of the best educated individuals of Elizabethan England. In fact, he had probably the largest library in England at this time, one of the largest collections of books and libraries. Scholars would travel from all over to lend and borrow books from the library and to communicate with other scholars. John Dee was also the royal astrologer and the court advisor to Queen Elizabeth I. So John Dee lived during the period of the English Reformation, in which the Anglican Church was being formed. And his father actually worked for Henry VIII. So he was living at the time of the English Reformation. He lived during the reign of Queen Mary, And he was actually imprisoned at one time because they believed that John Dee was trying to bewitch Queen Mary, when actually all he had done is create a natal chart for Queen Mary and for Queen Elizabeth. He actually chose the coronation date for Queen Elizabeth, the date that she would be crowned. And he was a royal advisor and a confidant of Queen Elizabeth throughout the rest of her life. So this occultist, John Dee, would be very close to Queen Elizabeth. As I said, he was a very erudite scholar. He was an expert in navigation, geography, geometry, mathematics, astronomy, astrology, philosophy. He was one of the best. He was one of the best educated individuals of this time. And John Dee records in his personal diary that he became bored with. He became tired of what he considered the vanities of human knowledge, and he decided to start working with the supernatural, to start interacting with angels in order to gain a deeper understanding of knowledge. Now, to accomplish this, John Dee himself drew upon a much older tradition of angel magic that is found throughout the Renaissance of Europe and also found in the Middle Ages. So you see different elements of Enochian magic that are really part of a broader tradition. For example, so really people tend to think of Enochian magic as sort of existing in a vacuum, as totally unique and unto itself. When really Enochian magic is part of a much broader and older Renaissance and medieval angelic magical tradition. For example, the Holy Table, or the Table of Practice, you would see a precedent. The Holy Table was not a unique concept. You see this in the Theurgia Goetia, in the Pauline art. You see it in the Almadel. You see it in Trithemius's On Drawing Spirits into Crystals. You see this concept of a holy table or table of practice. The use of a scrying device and having another scryer look into the scrying device. You see this throughout the grimoire traditions of the Renaissance and Middle Ages. You see it in the Hygromanteia, which is one of the most complete and oldest forms of Solomonic magic, which comes from Greek sources. You see also these techniques for communicating with spirits and the Graecae Papyri Magicae, or the Papyri Graecae Magicae, the PGM or Greek Magical Papyri, which are a collection of magical texts gathered from Alexandria in Egypt and around this area, dating from around the 4th century BCE up until around the 3rd or 4th century of our Common Era. So you see this use of scrying to communicate with spirits. You see it not only throughout the Renaissance and the Middle Ages, but you also see it in the Greek magical papyri, which probably draws on older Babylonian and Egyptian forms of magic as well. So, as you can see, Enochian magic does not exist within a vacuum. There are the various elements of Enochian magic are really found within a lot of older angel magic traditions from the Renaissance and the Middle Ages, and even further back. So the concept of a holy table, the use of a scrying device, also the use of a lamen or breastplate, you can find in many different ancient grimoires. You can see it in the Hygromanteia. You see the concept of a magical lamen. You actually see the lamen in the PGM, which dates around 2,000 years ago. You see this practice of magicians and stuff and sorcerers and things like that wearing a magical breastplate when you're interacting with spirits. Also, the Solomonic ring would be a part of Solomonic tradition, and you even see it in the Treatise of Solomon in the Testament of Solomon. Solomon, about 2,000 years ago, the Testament of Solomon. Around 1st, 2nd century of our Common Era, the Testament of Solomon talks about the magical ring. So, as I said, the various techniques and various implements of Enochian magic are really part of a much older angel magic tradition on summoning and communicating with various spirits. So whether or not you believe in this type of thing, any historian would be able to look at this and say, yes, this is actually part of a much richer tradition that people have believed that they've communicated with these various entities using these exact methods for a very long period of time. Really as far back as we have, clear records of this, and probably much further. And also, there is also the mistaken opinion that somehow Enochian magic died with the death of John Dee and wouldn't pop up again until the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn towards the end of the 19th century. This is not correct. Elias Ashmole, who lived in the 1600s, would receive, as I'll go into in a moment, many of the manuscripts of John Dee, and he himself would work with this system of magic. You have Baron Somers, who was a Lord Chancellor of England in the 1600s, that would work with this system of magic as well. You have Sir Joseph Jekyll from 1663 to 1738 that would work with this system. Goodwin Wharton was a treasure hunter. He was looking for buried treasure. He was a treasure hunter and an adventurer. He summoned the various angels because he was really looking to strike it rich. And this was in that later period as well. And Frederick Hockley lived during the 1800s, and he would work with Enochian magic, and he would actually join the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn in his 70s, and this would be a link with the older magical traditions of Enochian magic. And of course, you can also see it in the Treatise on Angel Magic, which is probably written during the 18th or 17th centuries, and is said to be written by Dr. Rudd, although that is debatable. And we have this that has been published by Adam McLean, although I do not agree with some of his notes that he has in his introduction. So what are some of the sources for Enochian magic? As I just said, Enochian magic is really part of a much older tradition of angel magic, and it would continue to be practiced. What are some of the sources? One thing I want to say real quick before passing on to the source material is, okay, if Enochian magic is part of this older tradition, what makes it unique? I mean, you have even the different letter squares, where you have different letters and numbers and tablets and squares, and from this you derive different names of spirits. Even that is found in other traditions of magic. Different magical alphabets that are celestial or seen as angelical. This is something that you would see in many traditions. So basically, when John Dee and Edward Kelley were working with this system, they believed that the spirits themselves were giving them a purified form of these techniques. So they believed that they were receiving a sort of purified form directly from the spirits, that the spirits themselves were showing how to contact them. Okay? And then also, another aspect of this that goes back from an earlier date is the Sigillum Dei Ameth. This is the Sigillum Dei Ameth of John Dee. Okay? And that is basically a replica of John Dee's Sigillum Dei Ameth. And there is the back of it. John Dee's Sigillum Dei Ameth would contain many different names of spirits. And this is actually, there is an earlier precedent in the Sigillum Dei found in Liber Iuratus, which is the sworn book of Honorius, which is not to be confused with the grimoire of Pope Honorius. These are two totally different grimoires. The Sworn Book of Honorius, son of Euclid, the Honorius of Thebes. This is the Sworn Book of Honorius, dating from the 13th or 14th century. This has another form of what would become the Sigillum de Ameth, in which it has the names of 7 planetary angels, surrounded by various other names, and also surrounded by the 72-lettered name of God, or the Shemham Pharesh. But the angels revealed what they considered a purified form of this. So really, what Enochian magic is what is believed to be a purified form of this magical tradition. What is believed to be a purified form. So what are the sources of Enochian magic? What are the sources that we have? One of the primary sources that we have is the 5 books of mystery, or Mysteriorum Libri Quinque, the 5 books of mystery. This is John Dee's spiritual diaries. The 5 books of mystery. These are in the public domain because they were written in the 16th century, and also these have been published by Wiser Books and by Joseph H. Peterson, the great occult scholar, which a lot of the work that Joseph H. Peterson does is absolutely marvelous. He has a great introduction and various footnotes to the text, but you can look online, you can find the 5 books of mystery, okay? So the first primary text is the 5 books of mystery. You also have the Heptarchia Mystica, in which John Dee condenses and describes the method for contacting, establishing contact, and interacting with the planetary angels, which includes the kings and princes and the 5 ministers of the 7 astrological planets, 7 days of the week, in which you use the different astrological talismans and communicate with these various angels. Also, Liber Scientiae Auxilii et Victoriae Terrestris. This book, you have the 48 angelic keys, and also a book of invocations, okay? A book of invocations and how to call upon the different Watchtower tablets. And so we actually have the book of evocations and invocations of the Watchtowers, okay? We actually have the methods used by John Dee. So this has been uncovered. Now, these documents were almost lost. We almost lost them. The way that these were preserved is almost supernatural, okay? It's almost supernatural, the way that these documents were preserved. John Dee was told not to reveal this system, some parts of it. He was told to keep this secret. He had actually hid these books in a cedar chest in a hidden compartment. These last 4 books that I mentioned, he hid in a secret compartment in this cedar chest. After John Dee died, this chest was sold to a Mr. John Woodall. Now, Mr. John Woodall had no idea that there was a secret compartment with these hidden manuscripts of John Dee that explained how to work with these spirits and everything else. So John Woodall was a very famous figure. He had actually written a text for medical doctors that are at sea, on ships, out on a voyage on the ocean. He actually wrote a treatise called The Surgeon's Mate. And chances are, if you were a medical doctor out at sea, you had a copy of The Surgeon's Mate in the 1600s. So, Dr. John Woodall purchased this cedar chest, unknowingly with this secret compartment with his manuscripts. John Woodall bequeathed this chest to his son Thomas Woodall. Thomas Woodall sold the chest to a furniture shop, and Robert and Susan Jones purchased this from the furniture shop. 20 years later, after they purchased it, Robert and Susanna Jones were moving the chest, and they thought they heard something rattling inside it. So now this is the story related by Elias Ashmole. Robert stuck a piece of iron into a crevice in the bottom of the chest, and the hidden compartment came out. And with it were the Heptarchia Mystica, the 48 angelical keys, the Book of Invocations, and Liber Scientiae Auxilia Victoriae Terrestris. These books came out of the hidden compartment. So after all this time, these texts were preserved. It's almost kind of uncanny. But guess what? Their maid burned about half of them because she was tearing off pages and trying to light fires with them. So their maid they thought they were garbage, I guess. She was tearing off pages and trying to light fires in the house with John Dee's manuscripts. So about half of them burned up. So this is the story that's related to and by Elias Ashmole. Now, the great fires of London occurred, in which many houses, many buildings were burned. Again, this was in the 17th century. Many of these houses were burning and on fire, and it caught their residents as well. So the chest actually burned in the Great Fire, but they preserved the books. Robert Jones died, and Susanna Jones married the personal friend of Elias Ashmole. So it's kind of funny how that worked out. And then Elias Ashmole was actually given these texts. Elias Ashmole actually traded them for a book about the Order of the Garter, which was not a very fair deal, needless to say. But Elias Ashmole received these texts. Elias Ashmole was one of the most important figures of Western occultism, and he was certainly one of the most important figures in the history of Enochian magic. He helped to preserve many of these texts, the Heptarchia Mystica, the Book of Invocations, all of this. He preserved these texts. Also, Elias Ashmole he actually saw the Holy Table of John Dee and Edward Kelley in John Cotton's library, and he made meticulous notes on how it actually looked in real life. So he was pivotal to the preservation and history of Enochian magic. And then there would be various magicians that would work with this after him as well. And of course, many of these texts would eventually be purchased by Sir Hans Sloane, who would later give them to the British Museum and British Library. So, something funny, a lot of times when people are reading about, the Key of Solomon, the Grimoire Verum, these different alchemical texts, a lot of people, they know that in the British Library, it'll say Sloane Manuscript 3648, or Sloane Manuscript 3188, whatever. So usually it'll say Sloane MS and then an item number. Where does that come from? Sir Hans Sloane was an avid book collector, which collected books on a vast array of topics from botany to astrology, alchemy, but he seemed to have quite an interest in spirit summoning operations. So Sir Hans Sloane's huge book collection was left to the British Museum and what would become the British Library. So that whenever you see a document that says Sloane Manuscript 36 whatever, or whatever number, then that's part of the collection of Sir Hans Sloane. So, as I said, Enochian magic, This is something that people overcomplicate quite a bit. They act like this is such a complicated topic. There is a very intricate history behind it, okay? But Enochian magic is actually very simple. In fact, it's a lot simpler than a lot of the other grimoires, okay? The practice of Enochian magic is actually simpler than some of the other grimoire traditions, where you have to have a circle etched into the floor, and then you have to have a triangle of the art, you have to have elaborate bath preparations, you have to have an asperging tool made of different herbs. If you read the Key of Solomon or various other texts, you'll see what I'm talking about. It can be very elaborate, or the Goetia. If you go from how the text was originally written, you know, having a loincloth or having vestments made of leopard skin, it could get pretty ridiculous. But Enochian magic is actually very simple. Even if you go with the most traditional, hardcore, old school way of doing it, it's not that difficult. You have the ring, the lamen, the holy table, the various wax seals, the silks, and the scrying stone. So it's really not that difficult. And, you know, if you wanted to adapt this to make it a lot simpler, it's really not that hard, okay? With Enochian magic, you basically have a scrying receptacle, and you call upon the different angels, and you receive various images in the scrying device. It's actually very simple. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about my own personal experience, but I don't think that I'm supposed to go in detail. I have spent the longest I have ever made on this video. I've literally made video after video after video after video. Every time something happened, something wasn't right, and I've been working on this video for, let's see, it is, what time is it? God, I'm not even kidding, about 8 hours. It's ridiculous. But I keep describing my first visions, and, you know, call me a little superstitious or whatever, I think that I'm not really supposed to talk about what I saw, okay? All I could say is, in my own personal experience, this is very real, and these are very vivid visions. Very vivid. I mean, seeing angels appear and holding objects and pointing towards things and showing me different tablets of letters and standing upon the sea and showing me this and pointing towards that. Very, very intricately detailed, okay? All that I could say is that the visions that I've had were very intense, very vivid. I know for a fact, in my own personal opinion, I know that this is real and that this is legit. I've worked with many different forms of magic. In my personal opinion, this is the most powerful form of magic I have ever worked with in my life. I have worked with hoodoo, voodoo, Solomonic magic. I've worked with sex magic, candle magic, puppets. I've worked with talismans, amulets, Wiccan type of magic, cones of power, herbal magic, elemental magic. I've worked with Golden Dawn style magic and spirit summoning, planetary spirit magic in the Golden Dawn style. I have worked with, throughout my life, I have worked with a vast array of magical practices. In my opinion, this is the most powerful form of magic I've ever worked with in my life. Now, I did say that I would talk about some of my experiences, but I don't think that I should describe the visions in detail. All that I could say about the visions themselves is that they were very vivid. It's not like, in my own experience, it's not like, you know, a little angel appears in the stone and talks to me. No. It's like I see like a red sea, and then it's standing on it and it's pointing towards this tablet, and like way vivid. I was like, whoa, I didn't even know what to think. After I had this vision, I didn't even know what to think about it. This basically knocked me into a loop because I'm not used to having visionary stuff like this, okay? In my opinion, this is real. This is legit. These are powerful beings. They're showing things. This is real. This is a powerful form of magic. But I will tell you a funny story of how I had my first vision. I just won't talk in detail about what the visions were or what the messages were. So, the first time I had a vision, I took a poster board and I drew out a design of the holy table, okay? And this is a very similar to what I drew. I took a marker and poster board and I drew out a design for the holy table. I took markers and poster board, and basically the brown is the color of the table. John Dee and Edward Kelley in the 5 books of mystery were told to make the star out of yellow or gold. And Elias Ashmole actually saw John Dee and Edward Kelley's holy table in John Cotton's library, and he described the border is made of a yellow or gold background with red lettering in between blue lines, and the central letter squares in between blue lines and yellow or gold letters. So I had a poster board with the holy table design. Now, my first Enochian visions were accidental. There was no intention, no focus, no like I'm trying to do anything. It was an accident. Basically, I put the items together, and like you put a machine together and it just starts running spontaneously. So I had my poster board like this sitting on the table, and I was thinking, well, how is this going to look? I thought to myself, that's going to look nice. Well, I might as well get my Sigillum Dei Ameth and put it on top and see what it looks like, okay? So I have my poster board, and I figure I'm going to get my Sigillum Dei Ameth and put it on top. So I went to the other room because I just wanted to see what it looks like, right? I just wanted to see what it looks like, y'all. So I put it on top. You know, I've got my Sigillum Dei Ameth. I put it on top of my holy table design. I'm like, cool, that looks really nice. I like that, y'all. I like it a lot. And then I thought to myself, you know what? It would be really cool. You know, it looks nice. I should go get my scrying stone and set it on top and see how that looks. So I went to the other room. I got my scrying stone and I set it on top. And I was like, wow, that looks really nice. And I was thinking like I can put a candle there and a candle there. And then I saw an image appear, and it was showing me all types of objects and all kinds of things. A vision occurred spontaneously, just like by putting these items together. So in my own personal experience, I'm not even going to set that on top of that. All I could say is my first vision was an accident on my part. All I wanted to do was put the stuff together and see how it would look. Which technically, that's not even the traditional way, because normally you have a white silk that goes over the table, then you have the sigillum with the 7 ensigns of creation, then on top of that you have another silk, which in Dee's first description would be a red silk, and then in a later one would be red and green, iridescent, okay? And then on top of that would be the scrying stone. But all I know is I put one thing on top of each other and visions just started happening. It was an accident. So there are really different ways of looking at this. Some people would say that tools don't matter at all. Some people would say that tools are important. I take the middle ground approach, the middle way. I think that they're helpful for certain. Indeed, they are definitely helpful tools. So basically, how I would advise you to work with this, you know, you can use no tools. That's up for you to decide. I encourage you to experiment and see what works. You can use no tools if you want. Or you can be really elaborate and get all the items and make sure it's all right. What I would advise you to do as a really simplified form, I would advise you to have 3 objects. I would advise you to do like I did. Get markers and get a poster board and write out your holy table on a poster board, okay? Make it, it'll be a fun art project, okay? You can do this, knock it out in a day. So you can trace out your holy table on poster board and markers. And then, if you don't want to like go through all the efforts of getting the actual wax sigillum like this, you can make it out of poster board or something else. Set them on top of each other, then set your scrying receptacle. So I would advise you to have some kind of a scrying receptacle. You can get them on eBay, you can get crystal ball, whatever. Have the holy table design, the sigillum de ameth, and a scrying stone or something, okay? Or a black mirror. Again, you can get crystal balls on eBay. I get lots of stuff on eBay, and it just comes right to the mail. So I would advise, if you want to try this out, get these 3 items. A scrying receptacle, get the sigillum de ameth, and the holy table. You can just get them out on poster board if you want. And how did John Dee work with this? This is often described as such a complicated system. It's really not, y'all. Enochian magic is not hard or complicated. People act like it is, but it's really not. So, how do you work with Enochian magic? Well, how did John Dee work with it? You know what John Dee did? He would pray for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and then Edward Kelley would look into a stone. That's how complicated Enochian magic was for John Dee and Edward Kelley. He would pray for 15, 30 minutes, and Edward Kelley would look into a stone. Then he would describe it and he would write it down. That's basically, of course, they would wash themselves, which was unusual back then. People that weren't exactly concerned with cleanliness. He would wash himself, put on clean garments and stuff, and he did have his ring and lamen and stuff. But the actual ritual procedure is that he would pray for 15, 30 minutes, and Edward Kelley would look into the stone. So, if you want a very simplified procedure, again, you can be as elaborate as you want. A very simplified procedure, get out some color markers and poster board, make a holy table, set it on an actual table. You might want to wipe it down and stuff, actual table, set the poster board on it. Get your sigillum, set it on top. Get your scrying stone or black mirror, set that on top. Okay, you have these items. Then I would advise you, if you know how to cast a circle, I would highly advise it for protection. Basically, get some water, bless the water in the name of the divine, and sprinkle the area to cleanse it. Light some incense and then bless the area in the name of the divine. Okay? And then you might want to go to the eastern edge of the ritual area and push your energies into an actual circle around you. And this will create a protective circle. That's what I advise. So holy water, incense, and push your energies into a circle. Now, none of this was done by John Dee and Edward Kelley. John Dee and Edward Kelley would John Dee would pray 15, 30 minutes. Edward Kelley would look into the stone. I'm telling you this for extra precaution. Then you simply call upon the different angels and look into the stone. Now, there is a very clear hierarchy. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit more about the watchtowers. So that's a very basic procedure. Just get the holy table, the sigillum, a scrying receptacle, cast a circle, and then start working with these different spirits, okay? And another thing is, traditionally in magic, a name of a spirit is a direct link. You'll notice that the sigillum Dei Ameth basically has the names of all these different spirits. And many of these same names of the kings and princes are found in the holy table. So this is a direct link right under your scrying receptacle with these spirits. Okay? So try it out, see how it works for you. I had an accident when I had my first vision, y'all. I didn't have to call on anything. No prayers, nothing. All I did, it was an accident. I tried to set the stuff just to see how it looked, and visions started occurring. And like really vivid, detailed visions that I'm not used to having. Very unusual, very rare. At some time, I might actually publish these. Of course, people understanding that I'm not saying that it's the truth. It's just an experience that I've had. Okay? I've made a bunch of different videos in which I talked in vivid detail about my visions. I've made a bunch of different videos. Every time something went wrong, in this video, I'm just not going to do it. Maybe in the future, I'll go into the detail. But what I personally do is I have my phone and a camera, and I will record myself as I communicate the vision, and then I'll play it later and I type it out into my ritual diary. Because you want to have a recording device, because the images can happen really fast and you're not going to remember what you saw. And writing it down is not very practical, because you have to look up, then you have to look down, then you have to look back. You could have another scribe, or what I do, you can have a voice recorder. I just use my camera on my phone, and I just say, I see an angel. He's standing at the side of the sea. He's holding a sword. He's pointing towards it, whatever. That is what I do, is I just record it on my phone. Now, I would like to talk a little bit more about the Watchtower tablets from a more traditional perspective and the hierarchy. By the way, Stephen Skinner and David Rankine actually published the book of invocations. And the text, he calls it Practical Angel Magic of Dr. John Dee's Tables. Where is it? I can't get up right now. I forgot the exact name of the book. Stephen Skinner and David Rankine. The book is called Practical Angel Magic of Dr. John Dee's Enochian Tables, something like that, okay? And it's the actual book of invocations that was used by John Dee and later magicians, and that is the actual instructions on how to call upon the different watchtowers. Now today, I'm going to talk about the Watchtower tablets. In a previous video, I spoke about the watchtowers, but I really mostly just gave the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn correspondences, which is totally different from the actual system as received by John Dee. So today I'm going to show you a little bit of the more traditional associations and offices of the angels. So, first of all, you have three lines. This is linea Patris, linea Filii, and linea Spiritus Sancti. And from this, you get the three mystical names of God. You get the angelic king, and you get the 6 seniors. So, first of all, this central line is the three mystical names of God. And this is the northern tablet. Mor, Dial, Hekate Ga. Okay? With these divine names, you can call upon the angelic king, Ikezehiha. Now, you don't want to say the last syllable because that calls upon the wrathful aspect of that spirit, according to Dee's original writing, which the Golden Dawn actually has you recite the whole thing. So, Ikezehiha. As you see, this last letter, the L, you would not pronounce. Okay? So, you start at the left, Ikezehiha. Okay? You skip that central letter. With any of the watchtowers, when dealing with the angelic king of the tablet or the watchtower. So you use these three mystical names of God, one of 3 letters, one of 4, one of 5, Mordial Hekate Ga, to call upon the king of the tablet. Then you have the 6 seniors, okay? Now a similar thing occurs here. The seniors on this central line, you want to skip that first letter, so it would be I Durong. Skip this first letter, La Hekate Ga, okay? Now, so you use the mystical names of God to activate the tablet, then you call upon the angelic king. After you do this, you can use the authority of the angelic king to call upon the 6 seniors or elders. The 6 seniors or elders are said to be good for knowledge, anything that deals with counsel or knowledge in human affairs, and they're said to have all the knowledge of Solomon. Now, after that, you have the 4 subquarters, okay? And in every subquarter, you see 4 Calvary crosses. These are called Calvary crosses in the 4 subquarters, the 4 subquadrants of the Watchtower tablets. And underneath the horizontal arm of the cross are 4 servient angels. Again, beneath the horizontal line are 4 servient angels, okay? These servient angels are summoned or called with this vertical lines, okay? And they're commanded with the horizontal line. So, and it doesn't matter which watchtower. Every watchtower has completely the same offices in the quarters. Always, whatever watchtower you have, the upper left subquadrant, the servient angels, deal with medicine and healing. They deal with medicine and healing. Again, you summon them with this name and you command them with that name. These 4 servient angels are good for knowledge of metals and stones. So if you want to learn the occult properties of stones, the angels themselves could teach you. These servient angels give you the knowledge of stones and metals. Again, you call with this name and you command with that name. These servient angels give you knowledge of the 4 elements, earth, air, fire, and water. Something interesting about these spirits is they teach you how to call upon and work with elemental spirits. So these spirits they'll teach you magic. They'll teach you how you can call upon and work with gnomes, undines, sylphs, salamanders, the various nature spirits, okay? Again, these are summoned with this name and commanded with that name. These servient angels deal with transformation, okay? And these are summoned with this name and commanded with that name. Now, above the horizontal line of each Calvary cross are the cherubim, the 4 cherubim. So here there are 4 in each subquadrant based on the transposition of letters. So here you have Boza, Ozab, Zabo, and Abos. These cherubim deal with mixture of substances. So if you're like into plant alchemy or something, they can instruct you and teach you. These 4 cherubim, Pehera, Herape, Rapehe, Apehar, these 4 cherubim deal with transportation. travel. So let's say that you're trying to take a trip, okay? You're trying to travel and you want to have a successful trip. These would be the spirits to call upon, or you want to have a safe journey or something. These spirits, Asmit, Samat, Matas, Tasem, these cherubim deal with discovery of secrets, okay? And these deal with mechanical crafts. Now, these cherubim are controlled and directed and called by adding the first letter of one of the divine names from the Table of Union. Now, to the eastern watchtower is Exarpe, to the southern watchtower is Betom, to the western watchtower is Hekoma, to the northern watchtower is Enanta. So, since this is the northern watchtower, you add the letter N to each one to get the divine name that directs the cherubim. So, Inboza, Nepehare, Naknik, Nasmit, okay? These are the names that direct the cherubim. And so this is a totally different way of doing it than in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Really, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was using incomplete sources, and they were just using it as something to project their own system onto. It just, in many ways, it totally goes against what John Dee and Edward Kelley said. So that none of those correspondences hardly happen in the Golden Dawn, whereas in the Golden Dawn it's just elemental and sub-elemental. And of course you still have the categories of cherubim and Serbian angels and stuff like that. But I just wanted to clarify a more traditional, the Dee purist way of working with the watchtowers and the various offices. So basically, you know, you have, what I would advise you to do is get a poster board and markers, get your holy table, get a sigillum, you can make your own, stick it on top, stick your scrying device. I would cast a circle and call upon these different forces. This is nothing like say, you know, lighting a candle and visualizing a desire, or even dealing with tarot cards or anything. You have to understand, you're summoning spirits and they're showing you visions and things. So, you know, this is kind of a whole other ball game. But basically, it's not as complex as people say that it is. Basically, all you need is the holy table, the sigillum, the scrying device, and you call upon the different angels. And again, you would use a hierarchy. If you're working with the angels of the watchtowers, you would use the divine names Mordial Hekatega to call upon the angelic king, and you would use that to work with whatever other spirits in this whole board. So the divine names, the angelic king, with that you can call upon any other spirits. And of course, if you're working with the cherubim, you have the divine name by adding the letter from the Tablet of Union. And then if you're dealing with the Serbian angels, you call with this word and you command with that name. But John Dee and Edward Kelley, all they did was John Dee would pray for 15 minutes, half an hour, and Edward Kelley would look into a stone. I really recommend that you create some kind of sacred space. I would bless some water and sprinkle it around. I would light some incense and incense the area. Then you would go to the eastern part of the ritual area and you push your energy in a circle around the area. And you visualize that you're tracing a circle of protection around you. This is important. Even if John Dee did not do that, I would do it, because it's very important to have some type of a protection. So it's actually very simple to do, but I would definitely, you know, trace a circle around you and bless the area, consecrate it beforehand. But it's not a difficult concept. It's not a difficult form of magic to practice. Like I said, my first visions with this system of magic was accidental. All I did was I set one on top of the other, and it just started running like a machine. So people tend to overcomplicate Enochian magic. It's really not that difficult. Okay, so the name of that book that I mentioned, if you want complete directions with outlined orations that were actually used by John Dee to work with the Watchtower angels, the book is Practical Angel Magic of Dr. John Dee's Enochian Tables. Tabularum Bonorum Angelorum Invocationes by Stephen Skinner and David Rankine. This text gives you clear directions on how to call upon the different archangel spirits and work with them. But that is a basic rundown of Enochian magic. I kind of went into how this system is part of a broader form of angel magic based in Renaissance and medieval magic. And also I got into how the system was preserved, perpetuated, and I also got in a little bit about my experience, and also talked a little bit about the basic setup. I would advise, get a holy table, get the sigillum, a scrying device, and create sacred space, and see how it works. Keep a record of your experiments and see how it works. So anyways, new videos come out every Saturday morning. I would like to remind you that I think, in my honest opinion, I think this is the most powerful form of magic I have ever worked with in my life. But anyways, and there are people that say you don't need any tools. Some people say you need all the tools. I personally tend to take a more traditional view. So I'm not telling you to take shortcuts, but this is a more condensed, like an easier form that anybody can do, okay? Without having to go through all the elaborate work. But new videos come out every Saturday morning. And if you would like to support my teachings, the work that I do, below in the description box is a link to my Patreon account. Anyways, new videos are out every Saturday morning. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.